Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with another lesson in the Introduction to Sales and Communications course. And this lesson's all about optimizing your sales cycles. So if you remember, in the last two lessons, we've been talking about sales cycles. So we understand what a sales cycle is. And a sales cycle is all the little interactions and engagements and sort of tasks or touch points that we have to do to basically, achieve a sale. So we're working in terms of conceptual thinking of, statistical statistical likelihood. So basically what we're looking at is we're looking at creating a process that if out of 100 people we run through this process, or if we run 100 people through this process, how many people on average are going to naturally buy, and how many people are going to sort of naturally fall through that process and end up buying or purchasing the product or service that we are providing. So we understand then, in constructing a sales cycle, we construct it as being a smooth flow between the start of a prospect or a buyer not really understanding anything, and a guided process or engagement that basically takes them from start to finish. So when we're thinking about, creating the sales cycle, we're thinking in terms of all the little things we need to line up for the sale to go through. Now, when we're thinking about optimizing the sales cycle, now we're looking at things like collapsing timeframes or removing steps altogether and sort of merging steps. So, for example, potentially we might let the customer. So, to give you an example of this, okay, when I was in the property company, what we used to do is we used to wait for the broker to get the documents so that the loan could be approved or the loan could be submitted. Now, the problem with this is the broker didn't start this process until he was applying for the loan. So he didn't engage with the buyers outside of one email in the first engagement asking for the documents. Like, he wouldn't engage with them until the loan was ready to be submitted. So the downside is that there was a large time delay between a client getting their house and land package sort of set and the contracts in order, and getting the documentation and the filing for the loan application processed. So the downside to this was that in leaving all of the responsibility with the broker, the problem is that we sort of were limited to the ability of the broker in terms of, you know, their ability to get a hold of the customer, to get the customer to get across the details, the documents and all of that, to get across to the customer the sort of need for time, like the time constraints, because the contracts have minimum, you have 30 to 60 days to get finance approved. Otherwise, the contract falls through under a finance clause. So what we found was, when we were looking to optimize the sales cycle and we noticed a bottleneck near the end of the process that was stopping us doing that, well, we understood that, well, if we're able to find the point in the sale where the buyer becomes emotionally bought in. So sort of like at the point that the buyer becomes emotionally bought into purchasing the house and land. Okay, so usually in a house and land sale, when we're selling property, it's when you get the buyer emotionally engaged with the land itself, the location. Because once the location's set, now it's just a matter of the specific lot, and then it's a matter of the house. So we know the location, and then it's about getting and acquiring the land, and then it's about the house. So it becomes a real process at that point in the buyer's eyes. It's all sort of make-believe up until then. So an important thing we found was that the most effective time to get a buyer or a sort of a client to take action and directed action is to, at the point of emotional buy-in, is when we then require all documentation. So once we can see, touch, and feel it, now we are required to have that documentation tomorrow to be able to move forward with this. So rather than waiting, 1 or 2 months for the contracts to be drawn up on the land and the house design to be done, we're getting all that documentation straight across to the broker so that once we've done that, we can execute. Now, do you see how we're collapsing timeframes? Because in the ideal situation, okay, when the buyer has said, I want to live in this, sort of suburb, and this is where I want to buy my land. Well, then it becomes a point of, once we have that documentation, we get that across to the brokers. And then what we're able to do is acquire the land straight away, is acquire the building. So we're able to fast track it because in terms of, we're not trying to get the buyer to then decide on the land. We're not trying to get the buyer to then decide on the build. In terms of, we know that you want to live here. This is the location we want to live. There's limited land at certain price points, and prices only go up. Building materials only go up. So we know where you want to live. Okay, now we have to secure land at a good price in an effective time frame to be able to get you, the land that you want, because there's competition on this land. And then what we had to do was, well, we've already got the land, so now it's the house. And once we realize that by making it real at that point, in terms of when they become emotionally bought in, now we ask them to take the action of getting everything ready. And we require that in that stage of the process because it collapses all other timeframes waiting for documents later on. So what we found was, we were able to cut down, the average property sale, like with our clients, from a 12-month process of getting everything sorted, getting them all ready, down to a 6-month process on average, and 1 to 3 months for a hot buyer, or a buyer that was ready to go. But it wasn't just by this one alteration, but it was by many little alterations like this that we were able to collapse that down. So what that means is, we're able to increase either the number of, or volume of, transactions happening, or we're able to increase the frequency in transactions. So we're able to have transactions go at a quicker rate. So rather than us investing in advertising in January and not seeing a return until January the following year, we may be able to get some returns in March, some returns in August. So it allows us, when we're optimizing our sales process, and generally we want to have about 6 to 12 months of data on operations before we really try and do large organizational sort of sales cycles optimization. But generally, if we're going 3 months, because what we need is, we need data to compare to. So we need to understand that 20 or 30 clients are getting stuck up in the application phase, right? When it's 1 or 2, well, excuses sort of can justify it. When it's 20 or 30, we know that there's a direct problem. So we're able to correlate all of the similarities between them. So we need data to be able to optimize the sales cycle. So we don't want to try and optimize the sales cycle pre to launching it. We want the sales cycle to run. So when we set up the sales cycle, we want it to be functional. When we optimize the sales cycle, we're looking to increase productivity and increase effectiveness. So we can't just start off trying to be the most effective and the most productive as we can, because we have to sort of build out the structures and the processes. Do you sort of understand? We have to know the most effective marketing in terms of, the text-based and email-based reminders and things like that. We have to understand show rates. Like, there's no point trying to optimize our sales cycle if our sales cycle isn't working. if it's not effective. So when we're optimizing, we're looking to take something that is good and make it amazing. Okay. So the first goal is setting up a sales cycle. And in that goal, we're trying to get it good. So just understanding that definition, because the thing is we don't want to get stuck in pre-planned phase or early, over constrained sales cycles where we got 30 different tasks to do every day for each customer. So we're limited to, one or two customers a day that we can deal with in terms of that's the problem. So we want to simplify it so that we're able to streamline customer interaction, but also so that we're able to streamline the time frame for those customers. So we're able to have it smoother. So rather than us having to wait 3 weeks for documents, we're only waiting 2 days or we're waiting 1 week. Sort of effective things like that. All right. Well, that's going to end this one and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.